Beca stood outside the courthouse with trembling hands, staring at the building that would decide her entire future. She had nothing left to lose, but everything to fight for. Her son's face flashed in her mind, those innocent eyes that trusted her to make everything right, and today she would either become his hero or watch everything crumble into dust. Before we dive into this unbelievable journey, I need you to do something right now. Type your country in the comments below. I want to see where you're watching from because this story is going viral across the globe, and I want to know if you're part of this movement. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button because you're about to witness one of the most shocking court battles ever told. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this story. Trust me, they'll thank you later. Now let's get into what happened to Beca. 3 years earlier, Beca thought she had found her forever. Marcus was charming, ambitious, and promised her the world. They met at a coffee shop on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. She was a junior graphic designer trying to make ends meet, sketching logos in her worn notebook between sips of cheap coffee. He was a regional sales manager for a tech startup, confident and magnetic. When he approached her table and asked about her drawings, she felt something shift in her chest. Hope. The kind of hope that makes you believe in second chances. Their romance moved fast. Too fast, her best friend Janelle warned her. But Beca was 26 and tired of being careful. Tired of playing it safe while life passed her by. Marcus made her feel seen, valued, desired. He took her to restaurants she couldn't afford, introduced her to people who could advance her career, whispered promises about their future while holding her close at night. 6 months in, she was pregnant. The news should have brought them closer. Instead, it revealed who Marcus really was. The mask slipped slowly at first. He started missing their doctor's appointments, claiming work emergencies that always seemed to coincide with important moments. When Beca was 12 weeks pregnant and bleeding in the emergency room, terrified she was losing their baby, Marcus was at a sports bar watching a playoff game. His phone went straight to voicemail. She sat alone on that cold examination table, praying to a God she barely believed in anymore, while strangers in scrubs tried to comfort her with clinical reassurance. The baby survived that scare, but something in Beca died. She started noticing things. The way Marcus's phone was always face down, the late nights that became more frequent, the perfume on his collar that wasn't hers, the hotel receipt she found in his jacket pocket for a weekend he claimed to be at a work conference. When she confronted him, 7 months pregnant and exhausted, he didn't even have the decency to lie convincingly. There was someone else, had been for months, maybe longer. He wasn't ready to be a father. He needed space to figure things out. The words tumbled out of his mouth like rehearsed lines from a script he'd practiced in the mirror. Beca listened, her hand unconsciously moving to her swollen belly, feeling her son kick against her palm as if sensing his mother's breaking heart. Marcus left that night, took his clothes, his cologne, his promises, and disappeared into a life that didn't include her or their unborn child. Baby Aiden was born on a snowy December night. Beca labored for 19 hours with only Janelle by her side, gripping her hand through every contraction. When the nurse finally placed that tiny perfect human on her chest, Beca sobbed. Not from pain, but from overwhelming love mixed with devastating loneliness. This was supposed to be their moment. She was supposed to look up and see Marcus's face filled with wonder and pride. Instead, she saw empty space where a father should have been. The first year was survival mode. Beca returned to work after 6 weeks because she couldn't afford more unpaid leave. Her mother helped with childcare when she could, but she lived 3 hours away and had health problems of her own. Beca learned to function on 3 hours of sleep, mastered the art of nursing while answering work emails, became an expert at stretching a dollar until it screamed. Her apartment was small and drafty. Sometimes she chose between heating and groceries. Aiden never went hungry, but Beca did. Often, Marcus sent exactly 3 text messages in that first year. One when Aiden was born asking if he was healthy. One on his own birthday asking Beca not to contact him because he was trying to move on. One at Christmas with a generic holiday greeting that felt like a slap across the face. No calls, no visits, no money, no acknowledgement that he had a son whose first steps he was missing, whose first words would never be for him. But Beca discovered something during that brutal first year. She was stronger than she ever imagined. She watched her son grow, witnessed every milestone, built a world for him out of nothing but love and determination. She took on freelance design projects during Aiden's naps, slowly building a portfolio that attracted better clients. She learned to do her own taxes, fix her leaky faucet, unclog drains, assemble furniture from confusing instruction manuals. She became both mother and father, nurturer and provider, soft place to land and immovable force. When Aiden turned 18 months old, everything changed. Beca was scrolling through social media during her lunch break when she saw it. Marcus's engagement announcement. The woman draped across his chest in the photo was beautiful, polished, successful. The caption gushed about finding his soulmate, about building a future together, about finally feeling complete. The comments section was filled with congratulations and heart emojis. Beca stared at her phone screen until her vision blurred. He had moved on, built a whole new life, was planning a wedding, probably a honeymoon, probably a house in the suburbs with a white picket fence and a golden retriever. Meanwhile, Becca was wearing the same 3 outfits on rotation because she couldn't afford new clothes, eating ramen for dinner 4 nights a week, driving a car held together by duct tape and prayers. The injustice of it hollowed her out, but it also lit something inside her, a spark that would soon become a wildfire. Janelle convinced her to see a lawyer. Just a consultation, she urged, just to understand her options. Beca resisted at first. Legal fees were impossible. Court battles were for people with resources, with savings accounts and safety nets, not for single mothers working 60-hour weeks just to keep the lights on. But Janelle was relentless. And one Saturday morning, Beca found herself sitting across from attorney Sharon Daniels in an office that smelled like old books and expensive coffee. Sharon was in her 50s, sharp-eyed and no-nonsense. She listened to Becca's story without interrupting, taking notes in tight, precise handwriting. When Beca finished, Sharon leaned back in her leather chair and asked one question. "Do you want justice or revenge?" Beca didn't hesitate. "Justice. I just want what's right for my son." Sharon explained the reality. Marcus owed child support from the moment Aiden was born. He had legally established paternity when he signed the birth certificate, probably without realizing the implications. He couldn't just opt out of fatherhood because it was inconvenient. The law didn't work that way. Sharon could file for back child support, ongoing payments, potentially even split medical expenses and childcare costs. But she warned the process would be long, expensive, and emotionally draining. Men like Marcus rarely went down without a fight. Beca made a decision that would change everything. She agreed to move forward. Sharon offered to work on contingency, taking a percentage of whatever they recovered instead of charging hourly. It was risky for both of them, but Sharon believed in the case, believed in Beca. They filed the lawsuit on a Tuesday morning in March. Marcus's response came 2 weeks later through his own attorney, a slick corporate lawyer named David Brennan, who specialized in making problems disappear. The response was brutal in its coldness. Marcus denied responsibility, claimed Beca had trapped him with the pregnancy, suggested she couldn't prove he was the father despite his name on the birth certificate, argued that he had verbally expressed his desire not to become a parent, and she had proceeded anyway against his wishes. Every word was designed to paint Beca as a manipulative opportunist and Marcus as an innocent victim. Beca cried when she read it, not gentle tears but body-racking sobs that left her gasping for air on her bathroom floor while Aiden napped in the next room. How could anyone be so cruel? How could the man who once promised her forever now claim she had trapped him? That their son was some kind of mistake she had forced upon him? But the tears dried. They always did. Beca had learned that grief and anger could coexist, that heartbreak didn't have the luxury of lasting when a toddler needed dinner and someone had to be strong enough to keep moving forward. She picked herself up, washed her face, and called Sharon. "We fight," she said simply. "Whatever it takes, we fight." The discovery process was invasive and humiliating. Beca had to document every expense, provide bank statements showing her poverty in embarrassing detail, submit to questions about her sexual history and relationship timeline. Marcus's lawyer tried to paint her as irresponsible with money, suggesting her financial struggles were her own fault. They questioned why she hadn't pursued Marcus for support earlier. They implied she had other partners who could be Aiden's father. Every deposition felt like being stripped naked and examined under harsh fluorescent lights. But Sharon was brilliant. She built a case brick by brick, document by document. Text messages where Marcus acknowledged the pregnancy, the birth certificate with his signature, photos of them together during her pregnancy that destroyed his claims of being uninvolved. Financial records showing Marcus's comfortable income while Beca struggled. Medical bills Beca paid alone while Marcus bought himself a new car. The evidence painted a devastating picture of abandonment and selfishness. 6 months into the legal battle, Beca discovered something that would blow the case wide open. She was picking Aiden up from daycare when she overheard two mothers talking about Marcus's upcoming wedding. One of them mentioned the venue, a luxury resort in the Caribbean. The other gushed about seeing photos of the engagement ring, easily worth $30,000. Beca's mind reeled. While claiming he couldn't afford child support, Marcus was planning a destination wedding that likely cost more than Beca earned in a year. Sharon subpoenaed Marcus's financial records. What they revealed was staggering. Marcus wasn't just comfortable, he was wealthy. His salary had increased significantly since Aiden's birth. He had substantial savings, investments, owned property. The man crying poverty in legal documents had assets worth over $500,000. He wasn't refusing to pay child support because he couldn't afford it. He was refusing because he didn't want to. The trial date was set for November, nearly 2 years after Beca first walked into Sharon's office. Those 2 years had aged Beca in ways that had nothing to do with time. She was thinner, harder, exhausted in her bones. But she was also more determined than ever. Aiden was 3 now, asking questions about why he didn't have a daddy like the other kids at daycare. Those questions cut deeper than any legal brief. The night before the trial, Beca couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at her ceiling, running through testimony in her mind, imagining every possible outcome. What if they lost? What if the judge sided with Marcus? What if all this pain and effort resulted in nothing? Fear gripped her throat. But then she heard Aiden stirring in his room, that soft little cough he made in his sleep. And she remembered why she was doing this. Not for revenge, not even for money, for justice, for the principle that fathers couldn't just abandon their children without consequences. The courthouse was intimidating, all marble floors and high ceilings that made every footstep echo. Beca wore her best outfit, a navy dress she'd found at a thrift store and had tailored to fit properly. She wanted to look dignified, put together, like someone worthy of the court's respect. Sharon met her outside the courtroom, squeezed her shoulder, reminded her to breathe. "You've got this. Just tell the truth." Marcus was already inside when they entered. Beca hadn't seen him in person since the night he left. He looked good. Expensive suit, professional haircut, confident posture, like someone who had never missed a meal or worried about rent. His fiancée sat behind him in the gallery, a show of support that made Beca's stomach turn. He had someone. Beca had Janelle, who had taken a personal day from work to be there. The contrast felt symbolic. The judge was a woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Morrison. She had a reputation for being tough but fair, intolerant of nonsense from either side. She reviewed the case files with reading glasses perched on her nose, occasionally making notes, her face revealing nothing. Sharon's opening statement was powerful. She outlined the facts with surgical precision. Marcus and Beca's relationship, the pregnancy, his abandonment, the years of zero support, Aiden's needs, Marcus's financial capacity, the moral and legal obligation he had shirked. She didn't need to be dramatic. The facts spoke for themselves. David Brennan's opening statement tried a different approach. He painted Marcus as a young man who made a mistake, who had been clear about not wanting children, who had been trapped in a situation he never consented to. He argued that forcing financial responsibility on unwilling fathers was itself unjust, that men should have the same reproductive choices as women. The argument was philosophically interesting but legally irrelevant. Judge Morrison's expression suggested she knew it. Beca testified first. Sharon walked her through the relationship, the pregnancy, Marcus's increasing distance, his abandonment, the birth, the years of solo parenting. Beca kept her voice steady, answered every question clearly, refused to cry even when the emotion threatened to overwhelm her. She talked about rocking Aiden through colic episodes alone at 3 in the morning, about choosing between medicine and groceries, about the crushing weight of being solely responsible for another human's existence. The cross-examination was brutal. David Brennan was good at his job. He questioned Becca's financial choices. Why didn't you move in with your mother to save money? Why did you keep the pregnancy if you knew you couldn't afford it? Did you ever explicitly discuss with Marcus what would happen if you got pregnant? Weren't you on birth control? The questions were designed to shame her, to suggest this was all her fault. But Beca didn't break. Sharon had prepared her well. She answered each question with dignity. She moved in with her mother temporarily, but her mother's health required quiet and space that a baby couldn't provide. She kept the pregnancy because it was her choice and her right. They had discussed children in abstract terms, and Marcus had seemed enthusiastic about eventually having a family. Birth control failed. These things happen. She refused to apologize for Aiden's existence. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. Marcus took the stand. He looked nervous despite his lawyer's coaching. Sharon approached him like a predator who had spotted wounded prey. She started gentle, establishing timeline and facts he couldn't deny. Then she moved in. Mr. Patterson, you signed the birth certificate, correct? Yes. You acknowledge paternity? Yes. You've never requested a paternity test? No. Because you know Aiden is your son? Yes. Yet you've contributed exactly $0 to his care in 3 years. Marcus hesitated. I've had financial difficulties. Sharon pulled out documents. These show you earned $92,000 last year. Is that correct? Yes. You own a condo valued at $250,000? Yes. You drive a car worth $40,000? Yes. You're planning a wedding at a resort where the average package costs $30,000? Marcus's jaw tightened. That's my fiancé's money, Sharon smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. But you're benefiting from it, aren't you? Living a lifestyle you couldn't afford alone? Enjoying luxuries while your son's mother works multiple jobs to afford diapers? Marcus's face flushed. I didn't ask for this situation. Sharon's voice sharpened. You didn't ask to be a father. No, but you did engage in sexual activity that carries the inherent risk of pregnancy? Marcus's lawyer objected, but the damage was done. Judge Morrison sustained the objection, but Beca could see she was paying close attention. Sharon continued. Have you ever met your son? No. Ever sent a birthday card? No. A Christmas gift? No. Do you know his favorite color? Marcus was silent. His favorite food? Silence. Whether he has any medical conditions? I don't know. Because you've never asked? I didn't think it was appropriate given the circumstances. Sharon let that hang in the air. You didn't think it was appropriate to know if your child has medical conditions? The questioning went on. Every answer Marcus gave dug his hole deeper. Sharon made him acknowledge that he had the financial means to support Aiden, but chose not to, that he had moved on with his life, building a future with someone new, while completely abandoning his child. That he had never even attempted to establish a relationship, never asked for visitation, never shown the slightest interest in being a father. He tried to justify it, claiming Beca had shut him out, but Sharon produced text messages and emails showing Beca had reached out multiple times offering him chances to be involved. He simply never responded. Then Sharon played her trump card. She called a witness nobody expected, Marcus's own mother. Eleanor Patterson was a dignified woman in her late 60s who looked devastated to be there. She testified that she had only recently learned she had a grandson. Marcus had hidden the pregnancy and birth from his entire family. When she found out through a mutual friend, she had tried to reach out to Beca, wanting to meet Aiden, wanting to be part of his life. Marcus had forbidden it, threatened to cut off all contact if she interfered. Eleanor's testimony destroyed any remaining sympathy for Marcus. Here was his own mother, willing and eager to be a grandmother, denied access because Marcus wanted to pretend his son didn't exist. Judge Morrison's expression finally showed emotion, disapproval, deep disapproval. The testimony phase lasted 3 days. Expert witnesses discussed child development and the importance of financial stability. Financial analysts broke down exactly how much Marcus should have been paying in child support. Character witnesses painted Beca as a devoted mother who had sacrificed everything for her son. Marcus's character witnesses were notably sparse and unconvincing. Closing arguments arrived. Sharon delivered a masterclass in legal advocacy. She didn't just argue the law, she argued morality, responsibility, the social contract that binds parents to children. She talked about Aiden, a little boy who deserved better than being treated like an inconvenience. She talked about Beca, a woman who had done everything right and been punished for it. She talked about Marcus, a man with every advantage choosing the path of cowardice and selfishness. She asked Judge Morrison to send a message that fathers cannot simply opt out when parenthood becomes inconvenient. David Brennan's closing argument felt hollow by comparison. He tried to invoke sympathy for Marcus, tried to argue that intent mattered, that forcing unwanted fatherhood on someone was its own injustice. But the facts were against him. The law was against him. The room's energy was against him. Even he seemed to know it. Judge Morrison announced she would deliver her ruling after a brief recess. Those 30 minutes felt like 30 hours. Beca sat outside the courtroom, hands clasped in her lap, trying to pray, but finding no words. Janelle held her hand. Sharon reviewed her notes. Marcus and his legal team huddled in whispered conversation. His fiancée had left at some point, apparently unable to stomach the proceedings. When they reconvened, Judge Morrison looked tired. She began by summarizing the case, the arguments, the evidence. Then she spoke directly to Marcus. Mr. Patterson, I have presided over family court for 23 years. I have seen many cases of parental abandonment, deadbeat fathers, custody battles. But rarely have I seen such a clear-cut case of willful, calculated shirking of parental responsibility. You had the means. You had the ability. You simply lacked the character. The courtroom was silent enough to hear breathing. Judge Morrison continued, "The law is clear. Parents have obligations to their children, regardless of whether those children were planned or wanted. You signed the birth certificate. You acknowledge paternity. You are legally and morally responsible for supporting your son. Your claims of financial hardship are demonstrably false. Your arguments about consent are legally irrelevant." She paused. "This court finds in favor of the plaintiff." Beca's heart stopped, then restarted at triple speed. Judge Morrison outlined the judgment. Marcus was ordered to pay 3 years of back child support calculated at the state guideline rate based on his actual income. The number was substantial, over $40,000. He was ordered to pay ongoing monthly child support of nearly $1,500. He was responsible for 50% of all medical expenses, childcare costs, and educational expenses. The court also awarded Beca her legal fees, meaning Marcus would pay for Sharon's services. The total judgment exceeded $70,000. But Judge Morrison wasn't finished. She also ordered Marcus to establish a college fund for Aiden, contributing a minimum of $500 monthly until the child turned 18. She required him to maintain life insurance with Aiden as the beneficiary. And in a move that stunned everyone, she ordered Marcus to attend parenting classes and family therapy, leaving the door open for potential future involvement if he chose to become a father to his son. Though she noted coldly, based on his behavior thus far, she did not hold high hopes. Marcus looked like he'd been punched. His lawyer was already whispering about appeals, but Beca knew appeals in cases this clear-cut rarely succeeded. This was real. This was happening. Judge Morrison addressed Beca directly. "Ms. Hayes, this court recognizes your resilience and dedication as a mother. Your son is fortunate to have you. I hope this judgment provides some measure of justice and relief." Then she gavelled the session closed. Beca stood on shaking legs. Sharon was grinning, already gathering papers. Janelle was crying happy tears. Beca felt numb, disconnected from her body, like she was watching this happen to someone else. They walked out of the courtroom into the hallway. Marcus rushed past without looking at them, his lawyer on his phone, probably already calling about filing appeals. Then it hit her. She had won. After 3 years of struggle, 2 years of legal battle, countless nights of doubt and fear and exhaustion, she had won. Not just money, though, that would change everything for Aiden, but validation. Recognition that what Marcus did was wrong, that she wasn't crazy or vindictive or greedy for wanting him to support his child. The system had seen the truth and ruled accordingly. Beca started crying right there in the courthouse hallway. Sharon hugged her, this professional woman who had become something like a friend through this ordeal. "You did it," she whispered. "You actually did it." Janelle joined the embrace, the three of them standing in the marble corridor while lawyers and clerks walked past, a small island of triumph in a sea of legal bureaucracy. The aftermath was both immediate and gradual. Marcus's lawyer did file an appeal, but it was dismissed within 6 weeks. The evidence was too overwhelming, the judgment too sound. Marcus had no choice but to pay. The back child support came in a lump sum that hit Beca's account on a random Tuesday afternoon. She checked her balance and literally gasped out loud. The number was so large it didn't seem real. She had never had more than a few $100s in savings at any given time. Now she had enough to breathe, enough to plan, enough to dream. She paid off every debt, the credit cards she'd maxed out buying Aiden clothes and medicine, the medical bills from her pregnancy that had been sent to collections, the small loan her mother had given her when her car broke down. She bought Aiden new clothes that actually fit instead of clearance items 2 sizes too big that he could grow into. She stocked her pantry with real food. She got her car properly repaired instead of patching it with temporary fixes. She found a better apartment in a safer neighborhood with a bedroom for Aiden instead of him sleeping in a corner of her room. But the biggest change was internal. Beca felt lighter, like she'd been carrying a boulder on her back for 3 years, and someone had finally lifted it off. The constant anxiety about money didn't disappear completely, but it quieted to a manageable hum instead of a screaming alarm. She could take Aiden to the Children's Museum without mentally calculating if she could afford the admission. She could say yes when he asked for a treat at the grocery store. Small things that shouldn't feel revolutionary but did. The monthly child support payments meant stability. Beca could budget, plan ahead, save for emergencies. She reduced her freelance work to more manageable levels and started spending more time with Aiden. They went to the park. They read books together. She taught him to draw, passing on the skill that had once been her passion before survival consumed everything. She watched him laugh and play and grow and felt grateful in a way that brought tears to her eyes. Marcus never reached out, not to apologize, not to ask about Aiden, not to attempt the relationship Judge Morrison had left open for him. The money came electronically, cold and transactional, like paying a utility bill. His parenting classes were completed, the certificates filed with the court as evidence of compliance. But he never took the next step of actually being a father. Beca felt sad about that for Aiden's sake, but not surprised. Some people simply weren't capable of rising to the occasion. Eleanor, however, did reach out. Marcus's mother called Beca a week after the trial concluded. She was crying, apologizing, asking if she could please meet her grandson. Beca thought about it carefully. She didn't want to use Aiden as a pawn or put him in awkward situations, but she also believed that more love in a child's life was rarely a bad thing. She agreed to a meeting in a neutral location, a park near her new apartment. Eleanor arrived with a stuffed elephant that was almost as big as Aiden and tears streaming down her face. She knelt in front of the little boy who looked at her with curious eyes and introduced herself as his grandmother. Aiden, being 3 and adaptable in the way children are, accepted this new person with enthusiasm, especially when the elephant was presented. Beca watched them interact and felt something soften in her chest. This wasn't what she'd imagined when she first got pregnant, but it was something good. Eleanor became a regular presence in Aiden's life. She babysat sometimes, giving Beca actual breaks that didn't come from paid sitters she could barely afford. She showed up for birthday parties and holidays. She filled the grandparent role that Becca's own mother couldn't fully occupy due to distance and health. She never made excuses for Marcus, never tried to get Beca to forgive him or give him chances. She simply loved Aiden fiercely and showed up consistently. That was enough. 2 years after the trial, Becca's life looked completely different. She had turned her freelance work into a thriving design business with multiple regular clients. The stability from child support had given her the breathing room to build something sustainable instead of just surviving contract to contract. She hired a part-time assistant. She raised her rates. She started turning down projects that didn't excite her. Aiden was thriving in a good preschool program. He had friends, hobbies, a life filled with love and opportunity. He still asked about his dad sometimes, and Becca answered honestly but age-appropriately. Your dad isn't able to be part of our life right now, but that doesn't mean anything is wrong with you. You are so loved. He seemed to accept this, the way children accept rain or bedtime, or other facts of existence they can't control. Beca even started dating again. Nothing serious. Just coffee meetings and occasional dinners with men who seemed kind and stable. She wasn't in a hurry. She had learned that being alone was better than being with the wrong person. She had learned that she was complete on her own, that she didn't need someone to rescue her because she had rescued herself. Any future partner would need to add to her life, not complete it. The lawsuit had done more than provide financial relief. It had restored something essential that Marcus had taken from her. Her sense that justice was possible, that standing up for yourself mattered, that David could sometimes beat Goliath if David was determined enough. She thought about other single mothers in similar situations, struggling alone while fathers escape responsibility. She started volunteering with a legal aid clinic, helping connect parents with resources to pursue child support cases. Sharon helped train her on the basics: how to file paperwork, what evidence to gather, how to navigate the system. Beca discovered she was good at it. She understood the fear, the shame, the exhaustion these mothers felt because she'd lived it. She could look them in the eye and say truthfully, I know this seems impossible, but it's not. I did it. You can too. Some cases settled quickly when fathers realized they couldn't hide. Others dragged on. But each small victory felt personal to Becca, like she was paying forward the help Sharon had given her. On Aiden's 6th birthday, Becca threw him a party at their apartment. The space was filled with kids from his kindergarten class, parents she'd become friendly with, Janelle and her family, Eleanor, Sharon, and her wife. Becca stood in her kitchen watching Aiden laugh with his friends over birthday cake and felt overwhelming gratitude. Not for the money, though, that had mattered, but for the journey, for discovering her own strength, for learning that she could take on a system designed to be intimidating and win. Marcus was getting married that same weekend. Becca knew because Eleanor had been invited but declined to attend, choosing Aiden's birthday instead. Becca felt nothing about it. No anger, no jealousy, no lingering hurt. Marcus was a footnote in her story now, the antagonist who had been defeated and rendered irrelevant. Her story was about so much more than him. As the party wound down and parents collected their sugar-high children, Aiden climbed into Beca's lap. He smelled like cake frosting and sunshine. He looked up at her with those eyes that were somehow both Marcus's and entirely his own. Best birthday ever, Mama. Beca kissed the top of his head. I'm so glad, baby. Happy birthday. That night, after Aiden was asleep and the apartment was clean and quiet, Beca sat on her balcony under the stars. She thought about the courthouse steps where this chapter had begun, how terrified she'd been, how uncertain of the outcome. She thought about all the moments of doubt, the times she'd wanted to give up, the nights she'd cried herself to sleep, wondering if any of it would matter. It had mattered. Every single moment of the fight had mattered. Not just for the financial outcome, though that had transformed their lives, but for the principle, for standing up and saying this is wrong and refusing to back down until someone with power agreed. For teaching herself and eventually Aiden that justice was worth pursuing even when it seemed impossible. Beca had gone into that courthouse as a struggling single mother. She'd walked out as a warrior. And that transformation, that knowledge of her own strength, was worth more than any judgment any court could ever award. The outcome didn't just shock people. It changed Beca's entire world and proved that sometimes, against all odds, the system works. Sometimes the good guys win. Sometimes a single mother with nothing but determination and truth on her side can take on a wealthy, selfish man and come out victorious. Beca's story didn't end with the trial. It began there. Everything that came after, the stability, the growth, the peace, the ability to be the mother Aiden deserved, all of it flowed from that single decision to stand up and fight for what was right. Now I need you to do something. Go down to the comments right now and tell me your country. I want to see how far this story has reached. And if this story inspired you, if Beca's courage gave you even a fraction of the strength she showed, hit that subscribe button because there are so many more stories like this that need to be told. Share this video with someone who's going through their own battle, someone who needs to know that fighting back is possible, someone who needs to hear that single mothers are some of the strongest people on this planet. Beca sued her baby daddy. The outcome shocked everyone who thought she'd lose, who thought money and expensive lawyers always win, who thought single mothers should just accept their fate and struggle in silence. But Beca proved them all wrong, and somewhere right now, there's another mother reading this, watching this, feeling that same fear Beca felt on those courthouse steps. This story is for her. This story is proof that you can win, that you should fight, that justice is possible. Type your country in the comments. Subscribe. Share this video. Let's make sure every mother who needs to hear this story finds it. Because Beca's victory wasn't just hers. It belongs to every parent who has ever fought alone for their child. Every person who has ever stood up against impossible odds and refused to back down. The outcome shocked everyone, but it shouldn't have. Because love, determination, and the truth have a power that no amount of money can overcome. Beca proved that, and her story will inspire thousands more to do the same.